here today with Mr. Pete Agnew. Pete is an original founding member of legendary rock band Nazareth. Nazareth are in their 54th year of existence. I said 54th. They will release their 25th studio album called Surviving the Law on April 15th on Frontiers Records. Pete, thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Scott. It's my pleasure.
It's 54 years of this band this year. It's just crazy. Did you ever think it would be this long?
No. I never thought I didn't think I was going to make it to 54. Never mind 54 years in the band. But no, I don't think anybody thought back in those days that things were going to last quite as long for the whole rock thing. It's great.
Yeah, it is fantastic to still have the band and yourself around, making great music and, surviving the law, more great Nazareth music. I'm reading the press release for this, and it says that all members of the band contributed to the songwriting.
Sure.
How did that songwriting process work for you guys? All in the same room? That's very unlikely these days. With everything we have going around and the technology really lets us be a little more free with that. Who's writing music? Who's writing lyrics? How does the songwriting process work for you guys now?
Well, listen, this time because of the pandemic, we were all in separate jails. I mean, it was just a case of no, we never saw each other at all. Normally, when we're writing, it's the same thing. We write on our own. I mean, years ago, now and again, you'll jam when you're rehearsing or having a little jam thing, and you'll come up with a riff here or there, and people will work on it, and it becomes a band song. And in the old days, we used to do that quite a lot. But we've never done that for many, many years. Everybody writes. Everybody's individual songwriters. And this time, and we're lucky because we've got really good songwriters in the band. I mean, some bands are struggling to get one songwriter. We've got 4 pretty good songwriters in the band, so we're quite lucky. And what happened this time is as you know, 2 years ago, just over, when everything, the doors got locked and they threw away the key, and we were all stuck, so everybody was writing away, doing nothing else to do. In fact, the first, after we'd been in what they called lockdown here, we'd been in for like 3 months. I mean, Jimmy had already sent me like 12 songs,
Wow.
It was crazy, there was songs getting written here and there and everywhere. I mean, it was just amazing, and it was quite hard to actually pick what was going to go on the record by the time we got around to recording, So it's a good position to be in, to be so stuck with too much material.
It is, and when you say too much material, I'm gonna tell people this. This is a huge collection of new music. 14 songs on this record. Is that everything you wrote for the album, or did you hold some back for a record?
I'll tell you what happened, Scott. It just so happened that because we were again, in this, this lockdown thing, and separated. Jimmy, our guitar player, and Carl, our singer, they both recorded solo albums as well. So. Wow. So the stuff that they'd written, for the Nazareth thing, the things that we didn't use, they had on their records. So things that would say, well, we'd prefer this one for Nazareth, but I mean, they were all great songs. It was just that we picked the ones that we liked for the Nazareth tracks. But the guys, so there's actually probably 3 albums come out of this time that we've been off, really, So that's how much writing was good. That's how much writing was going on. And Lee, our drummer, who's a fabulous songwriter, it's him that wrote like Strange Days and things like that. He's a drummer, so he doesn't do solo albums. But I mean, he could have with the material that he'd written, with the amount of songs he'd done. So there hasn't, the stuff didn't go to waste. That the songs don't get dumped,
Yeah, and it's just great, and you say that all these songs are solid. They're all good tracks, and that's yeah, they really are. And this is talk about Strange Days. opens the record. It's just this heaviness to it. It's
That's a
vibrant.
great. That's one of the best rock songs we've ever recorded.
It is fantastic. I put it on and I said, this is just classic Nazareth. It's just a heavy song that, you guys have your own brand of heavy rock and roll. And this is a great sampling of that. And you mentioned Lee, of course, Lee Agnew, your son, who been in the band now for 23 years.
Yeah. He's one of the old members now.
It's pretty great. And we're used to, if you came up with Nazareth in the 70s, you had the same lineup, the core lineup, for about 22 years or so.
Yeah.
But now, Jimmy has been in the band for 27 years, I believe.
That's right.
Yourself, of course, for going on 54 years.
A fixture.
And Carl has now been in the band for 7 years.
So
this is an established, gelled lineup that is, poised to make great music.
Yeah, you've got to say it's a new band, but it's except for myself, but it's in the Nazareth tradition. It's the guys have been in playing with each other for a long time now, and that's a couple of albums now. 7 years the guy's been in the band, the newest guy. Some bands don't last 7 years, so it's quite long, really, so we're quite relaxed with the lineup, and I think that's what's because of the kind of we still got that kind of newness. I think that's why the stuff's still fresh. The songs are all still, the guys are still coming up with fresh ideas and fresh, because they're working with different people. When you work with different people, you write differently, you think differently,
Yeah.
So I've had that with a lot of lineups, Nazareth lineups, if you like.
Yeah. And then, what's the difference between this lineup and, that the classic lineup that was together for so long? What would you say is the biggest difference?
The biggest difference is hard for me to remember that first one, because it's so long ago. It's 30. It's 32, 33 years since we did that. So it was a lot of fun in those days, but nowadays, I think we're all better musicians now, because we've had longer to do it. I also think we're better songwriters, again, through just the experience, the length of time. But I've enjoyed, like I say, all the different lineups that we've been through. I liked it when Zal joined and we had the sort of 5-piece for a while, and then when we had the Nazareth Orchestra, we had Billy Rankin and John Locke on keyboards. So that was good fun. And then we had the while where it was back to 5 and then back to 4 again, and then with Billy, and then with Lee and Darren. It's just there's been a kind of mixtures. Things have. People have changed all the way through, and I've just been watching it all go by and still hanging on to my job.
It's pretty great. It is awesome to see you still doing this and still being great at it. This is a great record. Did you have a specific sound in mind? Going into the record, did you say, hey, I want to make this the heaviest Nazareth record, or I want to, make this like, early Nazareth? Did you have a focus when you went into the recording this record?
Now, the only thing we always make sure is when we're going to make any albums, to make sure it doesn't sound like the one before, and make sure it doesn't try and make it sound stand on its own. We hate sort of making things, part 2 of, we were asked many times in the early days of record companies, can we have Hair of the Dog Part 2? Well, no, we don't do that. After we did that one, we did Close Enough for Rock and Roll, which was totally different. And after a few of them, we did like Malice in Wonderland, which was totally different from River of Dun. So we tried to make things a wee bit to keep it fresh for the fans, but to keep it fresh for us as well, to keep ourselves interested. We like to sort of approach the thing
feel
a new way. And we don't really have a sound in mind when we go into the studio. We've had the same producer now, young Jan, now for 5 albums, from Switzerland. We got on great with him, and we don't. He doesn't have, and he loves working with the band, but he knows that he doesn't have like a sound for an album. We'll have it. We'll say, can we get that kind of sound that we used on that track, or maybe use the bass sound we had on that track? We'll talk about it like that. Can we maybe get that? But with Jan, he keeps coming up with he keeps getting new sounds for us. When we're laying it down, he's recording it differently. So we never really know. We never go in with a sound in mind. The closest thing that we come to is, when the guys do the demos, when they actually do, when the guys write a song, a lot of times when they're doing the demo of the song, and they can all record quite well these days, with their home studios, they can get some really, it's their idea of the noise that they like for the song. We'll hear that on the demo and think, well, here, that sounds really great. So we'll get as close to that noise, if you like, as possible. He liked it a lot when he wrote it, and he made it sound like that. So you think, well, can we make it sound like that? So rather than him make it sound like what would people say with the Nazareths sound, which there isn't really, because they're all different things. We're looking at the sound that guy had in mind for that song, and treat every song separately, treat every song differently, and hope you can and hope you get the right sound and the right mood for that song. I mean, sometimes, obviously, when you're doing an album and you're in the studio for 6 weeks or something, and you've got a guitar sound that's really good, or whatever, you'll come out, you'll have that as the kind of basic sound. But I mean, you can change sounds so easily these days. I've got that on that album that we've done. We've got 14 sounds. 14 songs, and I've got 14 different bass sounds. That basically, so you can do, you do what you like. So we never really had a sound for the album in mind, and I think that once you start recording an album, it starts to the mood for the thing starts to develop itself. When you start to get into the atmosphere of the album,
Right.
And that one has definitely got a mood to it, it's different from Tattooed on My Brain, a bit heavier, a wee bit darker, I think, than Tattooed on My Brain, but still got the very, very good commercial noises on it,
Yeah. Oh, it is, and it does put you in a certain place. There is a mood, a theme to it, There are peaks and valleys as well. It is not a straightforward record, monotone record. This is a record that, will bring you up, bring you down, or, slow down, speed up. It's a fun record to listen to, no doubt. I have to ask you about, Hair of the Dog, and, Love Hurts, that big section of Nazareth where he just blew up for you. Hair of the Dog, I just did an interview with somebody who that's their single, a cover of Hair of the Dog. And that's not unusual. As I'm sure that song is one of the most covered, and of course Love Hurts, which is also a cover that you did. But I see people cover Love Hurts, and they're covering a Nazareth song.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it was. We were landed with a lot of people think we'd. I wish we'd written
it. No doubt. But Hair of the Dog gets all kinds of attention. Do you pay attention to who's covering the songs? And do you have a favorite? Some one that really hit you pretty square between the eyes,
I could never ever say that, because then I'd probably get myself slapped. So it's like when these people say, "What's your favorite country to play in?" I mean, are you crazy? You think, no, I mean, no. Well, fair. I'm fair. What's the most of the cover versions that I hear of any of the songs that we've done are really, what we don't do when we're doing cover versions, we treat a song that we're going to cover, we treat that as a demo for the song and say, now how can we make this sound nothing like that song and make it sound like Nazareth, like how we would, if we'd have written that song, how would we play it? Well, I've got to say, I mean, there's been good versions in Nazareth songs, Nazareth covers, but I've got to say they all sound pretty much like us, you know, like the version that we did. It's much the same. There's not a whole lot you can do with Hair of the Dog, the son of a bitch, you know, there's not a whole lot you can do with that song. That's there. And I mean, you couldn't really do, well, you could. Me and Dan and Billy one time, we went out, we did an acoustic tour and we did an acoustic version of it, but I don't think it would have been a hit. So I've never heard, you know, I've heard good versions of this stuff and think, oh, I like that. You know, I remember when Michael, was it Michael Monroe? Michael did, is it Not Faking It? He did. Suffered Forge in it, and Not Faking It, I think it was. And that was good. I like that sort of punk version of that. And what's their name? Guns N' Roses did the Dog.
Right.
But I mean, to me, it pretty much sounded like Nazareth with a different singer, you know. So,
right,
you know, they're all good versions. I mean, all good enough. And listen, get them to keep covering the songs. Keep covering them. Everybody, do them.
Yeah. Now, I have to ask you. You mentioned Guns N' Roses covering "Hair of the Dog." Is it true that you turned down an invitation to play Axl Rose's wedding?
No, that was okay. That's one of these wee stories, you know, that someone starts off and it grows legs, you know, and you know, and it starts to get a wee bit out of control. Not Axl would wanted Dan to sing at his wedding. He asked Dan if he could manage to do Love Hurts because he was getting married to, you know, the Everly Brothers' daughter, you know, in Love Hurts and all that thing. You know, it was going to be a big sort of play on that. But we were. I mean, Dan would have went. Dan would have did it because him and Axl got on fine. They're good friends. Yeah. But we were touring. We were. I don't know where we were. We were probably in Russia or someplace, or I don't know, wherever we were. So he just couldn't do it. But he didn't. You know, he didn't say I want Nazareth to come and play at the wedding. No, that never happened.
Now, I also heard that he had asked Manny to produce "Appetite for Destruction."
Well, he did. I mean, what happened was, I mean, when we met them, they were young guys, you know, and they used to come to see us. Or they came. We played in California, and we did about half a dozen shows there in one tour, and they were there every other night. You know, when they came, and we eventually met them, and they were a good bunch of young guys. You know, they were nice blokes. And they asked Manny to produce their album when they were, when they were going to do it. So he went over. I remember we had about a month off or something, and we were in rehearsals at the time. But Manny said, "I need a couple of weeks off." So he went away to see how he got on with it, and he came back after 2 weeks, you know. And we said, "Well, how did it go?" And he said, "Well," he said, "it was okay." He says, "But I never got more than 2 of them in the studio at the same time, so I don't know what it looks like."
Yeah.
You could never get anything together with them, really. He did some demos with them, I think. But I think, I mean, that album, they ended up with 6 or 7 different guys were producing that thing, you know. Right. I think they were quite hard to produce at the time, you know. Yeah. And you know, but I mean, I think Manny would have made a good job. And mind you, the production on that album is fabulous. Anyway, I mean, it's an incredible album. You know?
Yeah, and that's it was an instant classic, really.
Oh, I mean, it deserved all it got. You know, it's a cracking album. You know.
Yeah. You've influenced generations like Guns N' Roses and so many others over a long period of time. Have like writing songs now. Do you feel that any of those artists perhaps have influenced Nazareth in return?
Actually, we've got to the stage where we're starting to influence ourselves. You know, it's like, you know, you sometimes you're writing a song, and you're thinking, "Oh, I remember that. I did that and that one. What's that wee bridge there would fit nice in this, you know." So a bit of that goes on from time to time, I've got to say. But no, I don't. I don't feel. a direct influence. When you soak up all your influences throughout your life, of course, of course you do. Every time you step out the door, turn on the radio, it's going to influence. But I think when we get to when we're writing songs, I do tend to play more music. When I'm in the writing mood, but it's usually just all my old favourites that I'm listening to that get me in the right mood. I guess I don't think I'm being. Everybody doesn't feel as if they've been influenced, I think, but everybody is. But I don't think I've been influenced by Guns N' Roses, though. No, or gone the other way around, like you were saying. But then again, who knows? If I listen to them, something's got to be sticking in your head. It's it's. No matter who you are, you can't help it. It's
right.
It's getting through to you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most unusual songs for me as a Nazareth fan and listener, Please Don't Judas Me. I remember that song because mostly for me, Simon Phillips being on. That is a very young 18-year-old, I believe, Simon Phillips playing the tabla on that song. Do you have any memory of that song and how unusual that probably was in the canon of Nazareth?
I can remember it absolutely like it was yesterday. It was that was a song that Manny did, and when we were doing it, when we did the whole version of it, we were up in Air Studios, and John Punter, who was the engineer on that thing, and John, he produced for us later on, and we worked a lot with John up in Air, George Martin Studios, and he said, we said, we need someone, we need some kind of cogs, something on this, it's a bit percussion thing. And he says, I know a young kid, he says, he's good, he's only about 16. He says, he's really good. He said, can probably play tabla on this thing. So I went, okay, right. So get him in. So this young guy come into the studio, this wee boy, he come in, and he kind of come in and he went, hello, how are you? Hi, hello. And it was Studio One in Air. Now, anybody that knows, Studio One's is massive. It's like where they record the orchestras when they do. They've got 4 studios out there, but this is the one where they record the orchestras. And so it's a huge studio. So this wee guy goes out and he sits down on the floor, just just off to the side, and he looked really lonely, sitting in this massive big studio with his wee tabla. And I remember I think Dan went out and said, would you like something, son? Would you like a Coke or something? Give him a Coca-Cola. Because he looked as if you wanted to pat him on the head and say, it's okay, you'll be fine, And it was wonderful. I mean, to tell you the truth, when he played the thing, I mean, none of us had actually heard a tabla being played before anyway. It's the first time I'd heard a tabla being played. So if somebody said, is that good or is it bad? I thought it was quite pleasant and it was nice, but I couldn't tell you if it was good or bad.
Right.
It was like, so that's what it sounds like, But I mean, that was it. It was, as I say, he was a very, very young man. And then the next time, by the time the next time I met him, he was playing drums for Jeff Beck.
Right. So, yeah, Simon's done pretty good for himself.
He got better when he grew up to be a big boy. Well, he never actually got to be a big boy, but when he grew up to be a man, he went on to greater things than playing tabla for Nazareth.
Tell me, I want to respect your time. I know you got another one. Is there anything that you've always wanted to do in your life? You've spent most of your life in Nazareth, making music for us. Is there anything else that you've always wanted to do in your life that you haven't gotten a chance to do?
No, I can honestly say no, because this music's been my life since not just Nazareth. I mean, I started. I mean, I had my first sort of gig was when I was 11. Wow. and I played in some sort of a band or group. Since then, I mean, when we came to that lockdown thing, when we got to the pandemic there, and it was funny, I thought it got to a year. It was a whole year when they said that's a year we've been locked down. That's the first time a year that I never played. since I was 11 years old. You
Wow.
know, so that was in 60, and something like 63 years. You know,
Wow.
I'd never had that length of time that I hadn't played a gig someplace. You know, some kind of band. So I've never really thought. I mean, I've done things like, I mean, Dan and myself and Darryl and that. We used to go out and have a go. We used to play golf very badly. But the thing is, we were all lousy at it, so it was quite good. You know, we used to have some fun, but we never really took anything serious and never really had the time to do anything, because we've always been it's always been a heavy touring band, Nazareth. You know, we've always been out on the road. So there's not usually when we come back, we're quite happy just to put our feet up and you know, go to the pub and have a few drinks and go out to dinner and stuff like that. But I mean, I've not, you know, I couldn't. There's no place I'd want to go. You know, somebody said, "Do you want to travel? You mean go to an airport? Are you kidding me?" Right. When we get back from tour, I've no wish to see any other country.
Right. I would imagine so.
It sounds a bit boring, but I've never had. There's not anything that I'm lingering. You know, that I wished. You know, when I do pop my clogs, like I'm not going to be saying, well, I wished I did that, because I've actually done what I wanted to do.
That is a great thing. You ever think about writing it down? A book, an autobiography? You got a lot of stories. I know you do.
Yeah, you know, people talk about that, you know, but you see when you look at these, I've seen a few of the autobiographies. Some of them are really boring, but I've seen a few. And if you could take most bands and most people in rock bands, and you just change the name, the front of the book, all the stories that are in them are pretty much the same as they are for every band. You know, every time somebody says something, you say, "Oh, I did that," and they say, "Oh, I remember when we did that." You know, that kind of thing. Obviously, you've got the individual things, you know, that you could say, you could do. I'm sure everybody's got their individual stories. Somebody was asking me the other day, it was an interview, and somebody said, "Can you think about the sort of craziest thing that a fan did, you know, one of these things?" You know, I can never think of these stories. But I did remember, well, this is one of the example of an on the road thing. You know, we were playing in Russia, and we were doing this is when we first started going there. So it was maybe around it was after we'd been gone a few years, and we're out there about 1995, 1996. And we'd been going there a few years, and we did this big press conference. It was 200 press. I think it was in Tomsk, and we were in this big. And this woman stood up and she said something in Russian, and everybody was laughing and things. And then the interpreter said, "Well, what did she say?" And she would be in her maybe 40s or something. And she was telling them that when she was a young DJ, she was a DJ on a radio station. At that time, you weren't allowed to play any Western music, you know, rock and roll. I mean, there was have you take a look at it sometimes, there's a big list of us all. We're all banned. All your music was banned from Russia.
Right.
Anyway, she did Rampant. The album Rampant came out, and she locked all the doors in the station. She went downstairs and locked all the doors downstairs. She barricaded herself, and she played the whole of the side of Rampant, the whole side, before the police actually broke down the doors and came in and arrested her and took her away to the jail. And she got 2 months in jail, but she could have got 10 years. I mean, you know, easily got 10 years. So she did that to play an album, and I thought, that's not every band's got that story, you know. So that kind of things. You know?
Absolutely. So yeah.
That's one of the stories from the book I haven't written.
Yeah. And you know, you think about that, Pete. We'd love to hear you know, your stories, your story, your personal story, and you know, stories from the band days. You know, that would be a wonderful thing. But right now we have Surviving the Law. It comes out April 15th on Frontiers Records. You can get it, if I understand right, you can get it in CD, you can get it in vinyl, orange and yellow, and you can get it on cassette for those diehard hard copy people.
I couldn't believe that one when they said to me, you know, they said, you know, the record company, when you get the artwork done for the CD booklet, you know, you get that done, and everybody checked it out, and then they get the album done, and that was it's different artwork again. You've got to get that redone, you know, as a whole thing. And then they said the cassette booklet, and I thought, did I hear that right?
Right.
You know, who's got a cassette? And then Lee was telling me though, he bought a CD, which is another thing, but he'd actually bought a CD unit, and it came with a cassette player built into it again. You know,
Wow.
they stopped doing it. So for some reason they're doing it. So we're going to have to get the old pencil out again, you know, to redo something else.
Yeah, it's pretty great. You know, it's great to have, those kinds of things. We miss that tradition of opening a record or a cassette and, making it an event to sit down in front of your record player, in front of your cassette player, put it in, and enjoy it. And listen to it like it's an event, not just a passing thing.
Yeah.
So we have that with this record, Surviving the Law.
I think we'll do the next one. We'll do an 8-track of it. That's what
there you go.
We actually, it was so funny because I remember when we did Hair of the Dog in America, and when it became a big hit, we were presented with gold albums and blah blah this, and we were presented with a gold 8-track because it had played they'd sold so many down south, all the truckers, I guess, and so we'd actually got an 8-track. And it was years later on, somebody, I forgot I even had this thing, and it was somebody dug this thing out, and of course people were looking at it and going, "What is that?" No idea what it was, to look at, because over in Britain they never really took off here. It was cassettes that came here. We never really had 8-tracks. It was an American thing,
Yeah.
So. But it used to stop in the middle of the song and you had to go.
I remember that it would fade out and then click tracks and fade back in right in the middle.
It was wild stuff.
Wow. We've come a long way, that's for sure.
Well, we're going back again. We're going back.
Back. Well, Nazareth is definitely moving forward as always, in its 54th year, and I think there's many more years to come. Is that correct, Pete?
I hope so. So I'm 75 now, and that was the 25th album. I'd like to do another one, so we'll see. We're contracted, the record company are looking to see if we're going into the studio, so why not?
Unbelievable. It's so great. It's so great to have you here. Thank you so much. It's so great to get new music from Nazareth, continuing to surviving the law. April 15th, Frontiers Records. Pete Agnew, thank you. It's an honor.
Thanks very much, Scott. Enjoyed talking to you.
All right, take care, my friend.
You take it easy. Cheers. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.